Hey, it's Ty with Two Things Can Be True. I know it's been a while since y'all saw me. I haven't done a podcast in over 2 years, but one of my dear sweet cousins wrote a book, right? And I felt like this story needs to be heard. It needs to be, um, we need to amplify it as much as possible. And so I called her and I said, hey, after I read your book, I would love to interview you about, your story and why you decided to write this powerful book. And so I'm here in Oklahoma City, well, actually Edmond City, with my dear sweet cousin Patrice Cannon. So I want to thank you, Patrice, for trusting me to have this experience with you because it really meant a lot. It really did, and so I'm glad that you said she immediately said yes. And so and we are here now, and so we're gonna talk about this book. It's called Trisha's Daughters. We're gonna dive in, and we're gonna just have a wonderful conversation about trauma, about healing, about forgiveness, about anger, and we're just gonna go there. So I want to introduce Patrice and make sure that we know who she is. This is a woman. This is her third book that she's written. This is her first book of her own. I guess you could say a memoir in a way. She's written two other children's books. She's been in the education field for over 20 years. She also served in our military, so we think of her as service for over 7 years. She has children in the military. This woman, am I, just thinking about her, she has done remarkable things. It was like, and I'm not to get too far ahead, but there's parts in the book where people say like, if you sit down with her too long, you're gonna have a plan to start your own business. So after this podcast, who knows what time may be. But in all seriousness, I want to first thank you for this conversation.
Absolutely.
And I'm so honored to be in your presence because I love you. I love you, and I really um, appreciate you saying this is my story, and I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
So going to that, why now? That's the first question. That's my first question. Like, why did you decide this time is now to tell the story?
Well, I've tried to write this story for years,
Right.
and I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, and never really could figure out why I couldn't give birth to this story
Mm-hmm.
because it's always been a passion of mine to tell our family story. But then I realized that I had this powerful story, but I had not yet lived my redemption. I was still going through healing. I was still trying to process it, and so it just wasn't time.
Okay.
Um, and then very recent, well, probably in the last couple of years or so, I have a daughter who struggles with mental health,
Okay.
who's had to kind of sit with her own trauma and trying to help her through that. Um, I couldn't be so far removed from myself by trying to help her. And so I had to face my own stuff.
Mm.
And in doing so, it helped me to help her.
Right.
And then I realized, this is so common for us to not be able to face our trauma and deal with it. And I just wanted to, how can we use this to help other people?
Right.
And so I had got on the phone and I talked to my sisters and I said, y'all, it's time. And what's crazy is that for the first time, they were also saying it's time.
Wow.
And I was able to interview them all individually and get their stories and learn a lot about them that I didn't know before.
Right. And I'm glad that you said that. So you and your sisters grew up together. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up together, and when writing this, Trisha's Daughters, shameless plug, you learned things about your sisters that you didn't know.
Mm-hmm. I did. Um, I had lived in this story for a very long time, so I had bits and pieces of it from them because I've been trying to write it. But then when I really got to a place where I said, okay, it's time, they opened up about way more details than I had realized about them. And it made me feel like I'm with my sisters. We were in the same house, sleeping in the same bed.
Right.
And it was so much I didn't know about what was going on with them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. And going back to, you said earlier that you've been wanting to tell this story. Like, how long have you been wanting to tell this story?
Easily about 20 years.
Wow.
I have a lot of unfinished work on my computer.
So you've been carrying this for over 20 years, and now it's time that you're saying, it's here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we are. All righty. So we're going to get into these questions.
Okay.
And forgive me for using my phone. I don't have my cards. But I just want to make sure that I just say everything that needs to be answered these questions, because there are a lot of questions that I have after reading, some of the things that you and your sisters experience. And just to go off on the cuff, well, not the cuff, but all of your sisters, well, most of them all contribute to the book.
Yeah.
Except for one sister. Okay. And how did that make you feel? Everyone, but one sister didn't contribute to the book, or didn't want to tell her story at this time.
Yeah. When you really feel passionate about something, and you automatically want everybody in the room to feel passionate about it, and sometimes you have to step back and say, we're all on different journeys of our healing. And so when I spoke to her, I just said, hey, I'm writing this book. She gave me her blessing. She said, you have my blessing, you have my support. I just don't really think I have a story. And I don't know if it'll take her reading ours for her to kind of come and say, I want to be a part of it. But I just think that that's a part of the story within itself, because out of 7 girls, hey, some of us are going to want to tell the story. Some of us are not going to. Some of us healed in silence.
Right.
And I think just for her, that she's on her own healing journey. And we just respect that.
And that's the sisterhood.
Yeah.
And you guys respect that, which is beautiful. Going with your chapter, in my opinion, it goes right in there. And you talk about an incident that happened with your dad's brother. And you said that you were 3 years old when this happened. For one, like, how does one remember something at the age of 3? And why do you think that stayed with you?
Here's the thing. I don't even know if I was 3. I just know that that's the age that made the most sense.
Okay.
When I try to calculate time, because I was only in Texas from the time I was a baby till about 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah.
So the time that makes the most sense is around that time frame. And with me being back in school now and studying trauma and learning that kids should not really be remembering things at an early age. But with trauma, because it leaves such an impression on your brain, research will tell you that kids can remember things very vaguely at a very early age due to the impact that it has on your brain.
Right. And that's funny that you say that, because I remember when I was playing with one of my cousins at a very young age, and I had to get stitches, and my brother wasn't even born when this happened, and me and my brother were only 3 years apart. So I would have to be in almost 2, and I still remember being in a hospital bed and being wheeled to the back to get stitches. So that's funny how the brain or something remembers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. And then you also mentioned that now that you are in school and you are learning more about trauma, what are some takeaways that you have learned about trauma?
Oh my God, I thought I knew a lot about trauma because my bachelor's degree was in psychology. And so I learned a little bit about things. And but then now that I'm actually sitting in it and just how trauma affects the brain and how you don't outlive it. People think, well, time passed and you should be fine. And that happened a long time ago. Like, you don't outlive it. You don't grow out of it. You don't medicate it. No matter how much self-medicating you try to do, it doesn't go away, because trauma I'm not talking about when someone just hurts your feelings casually. I'm saying trauma and how it impacts and affects your brain. The biggest example that I can give is my husband was in a car accident 20 years ago, in a very bad car accident to where he almost died.
Wow.
And the trauma in his body was so impactful that 20 years later, he still takes pain medication because he still has pain from a car accident that he had 20 years ago.
Wow.
He still has metal in his body from a car accident he had from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that is the way that trauma, mental and emotional trauma, works the same way. Like there's a lot of adults that's still trying to nurture their inner child,
right,
that still has an effect on their adulthood, their choices, their relationships, their everything.
And I'm so glad that you made that, you brought that up about your
Mhm.
husband and his accident. Well, I'm not glad that you brought that up because he was in it, but because it shows that I think sometimes with trauma, people have to see a physical manifestation of it because a lot of stuff is very internal, so you can't see it. So I show up and you don't see this hurt boy,
Yeah.
this hurt woman, this hurt girl. You don't see that because there's no physical manifestation of
Yeah.
that. And I think that's why, because this book, Trisha's Daughters, it deals with rape, it deals with physical abuse, it deals with mental abuse from people should have been caretakers, people whom one should trust. And yeah. And so this book brings it all out. And it wasn't stated in the book. But it was one of my takeaways because like growing up in the Black families, they say, what goes on in this house stays in this house. Did you feel like that growing up?
Absolutely. That's probably why it took so long for us to tell the story, because even as kids, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Not even to each other. As close as we were, we didn't talk about it to each other. We were in church all the time. We didn't talk about it. We were in school every day. We didn't talk about it. We were the kids that had the perfect attendance. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything. And this is why we're now like at this age learning new things about each other, because we just didn't talk about it.
Right.
And nobody gave us the space to talk about it. Or maybe we thought something was wrong, or we didn't want to get people in trouble. And I know there's a part in my story talking about like the emotional aspect of things, that I carried the emotional abuse probably way more than I did any of the other abuse that I experienced, because that you don't have the scars, and people assume you're okay. Well, you graduated. Well, you're married. You got a good life. You need to let this go. And it's like you have no idea, like the struggle it is to get up every morning and try to live through something that whispers to you every day.
And let's talk about that, because in your book, in my opinion, you talk about, and you didn't use this word, but I'm gonna use it, being bullied by a grandmother, who, in a way tried to make you feel less than your other cousins. And so when you tell me about, how, because it's discussed in the book about, you was, you are successful and you were chasing all these accolades, and they still wasn't giving anything to you. So like, take me back, take me there, let's go, let's walk in that.
Here's the thing. I never knew why my grandmother targeted me, and I never knew why she didn't like me. That's what it felt like. Just no matter how good I felt I did in something, I could say, oh, I got an A in this. Oh, your cousin is got a better grade, or your cousin is more pretty, or your cousin is smarter. And so you're hearing this and everything is just always shut down. Well, that sticks with you. And so like I can remember even getting my bachelor's degree. And when I tell you, I didn't even remember that day where it should have been like this really great day.
Yeah.
I got a degree. It was really hard. I didn't even like celebrate it.
Wow.
I can remember the first time I bought a house, I didn't even unpack and hang pictures up. Like I didn't feel any of my successes because I was doing it to try to get, I still had her voice in my head for a very long time.
Right.
And it was hard to like get her voice that I wasn't good enough out of my head. The first time I went to college, I sabotaged it myself because imposter syndrome was real. And I never felt like I was supposed to be where I am. And it took me a long time to get to a place where I even felt I could say thank you. for getting an award for anything because I'm thinking this is what I'm supposed to do.
Let's go back to that. You said something that kind of struck me, it felt like this wasn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where in there, what were you hearing? What were you hearing in the backgrounds to make you feel like those things that you've earned,
Mm-hmm.
that you worked hard for, wasn't for you?
I wasn't good enough, and I'm not supposed to be doing it. Somebody else is supposed to be doing it, or somebody else is better. Or who do I think I am? To be able to do this, or if I'm successful at something and somebody want to give me an award, it kind of made me uncomfortable. One time, somebody gave me a compliment, and I started talking about something else, and they had to stop me, and they said, you realize you didn't even say thank you. Like you couldn't even like process the fact that I just said you're a beautiful person, and I was like, oh yeah, well what about the sun? I never thought that I could be like that I deserved it.
Yeah.
That it was supposed to be mine.
And when did you get to that place where I'm guessing you are now, and correct me if I'm wrong, where like, I do deserve nice things. I do work damn hard. I am a good woman. Like when did that shift start to happen in you?
Well, I went a lot of years where I realized I was a fake. And I spent a lot of
time. Okay, y'all heard that right? Okay.
I spent a lot of time pretending.
Yeah.
And to the outside world, I was successful. I was married. I had children. We had a beautiful home, cars. We had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And to a lot of people, I looked like I was being successful.
Right.
And when I tell you, when I got into public, I was piecing things together. I was putting on my makeup, doing my hair, dressed. To people, I appeared like I had it all going on. And I did it. What people didn't know is that I was going home almost every night and crying myself to sleep. I was going through depression. I had to be put on medication just to survive that show.
Yeah.
But then one day I lost everything. I went through a divorce at 40.
Yeah.
My kids were struggling with the divorce. He had the house. I had to go back from a 4-bedroom home after owning about 4 homes.
Yeah.
I went back living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I had to start my life all over. And I went through a very public divorce.
Yeah.
The whole, like, a lot of people knew.
We knew.
And I couldn't pretend no more.
Right.
Which was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I couldn't pretend anymore. But then once I got through take this mask off, I'm not pretending anymore, this is me. I realized at that moment that I want to show up in the world as myself, as my true self. And now every accolade that come after that, I feel like I was born again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was trying not to get emotional.
I know, it's good. No.
But I had a rebirth. I feel like in that moment I died and I was reborn to be myself. And all of my success, I feel it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have worked myself back up to get to where I am from the ground, and it's mine.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier, and I want to just touch back on that about because I know there's this misconception that time heals everything, and it's to quote SZA, like, I don't believe time heals everything. Time passes.
Time passes. Time heals nothing if you don't know you need to be healed.
We could end the interview with that, but we're not. Say that part one more time.
Time heals nothing if you don't know you need to be healed.
It doesn't.
It heals nothing.
So going back to the book, because that's why we're here. The opening of your book, when you tell the story of you losing your brother who you never got to meet, that story, and I say story, but this is real life, that it definitely needed to be told, but it starts also, let us know, where we're about to go, because it starts heavy. Your brother is 3 years old. He's in the hospital and he doesn't make it. And so where do you fall in line with your brother? Like, because it's 7, we got 7 sisters, but there was a brother. So where do you fall in line with that?
So I'm the fifth sister, but the sixth child.
Okay, so you're the sixth child.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what the age gap that was between you and your brother? Would
It
it
was
be?
several years, at least 5 or 6,
Okay.
if not more. It was important for me to start the book that way
I'm glad you did.
with him because I needed people to know that this is what set the course of my mom's story.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't know what to do. Like in my life, I've had a miscarriage and I see how it affected me emotionally.
Yes.
But to give birth to a child, to hold a child, to play with a child, to be there with the child for a few years and they pass, I don't even know how I would handle that.
Right.
But that set the course of my mom's story and her life. It impacted her a lot.
Yeah.
So to start off like that and to say, and she had 7 girls that came later, it was important for me to show that part first, really to honor him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to let him know, there's an 8th sibling.
Yes.
We do have a brother. But then I really wanted to show this is where my mom's story starts.
Right.
And even though we tell her story at the back of the book, it was important for me to start her at the beginning of the book because,
After reading, after reading the book, I read the book, and I'm not a big reader, y'all. Just FYI, but I read this book in less than a week. I couldn't put it down because I wanted to, of course, have this conversation with my cousin, but I wanted to understand because there's so much things that we just don't talk about. We'll have a gathering. It's like we all having a good time, but it's like, I don't know you. Like I never knew your mom's story. Like when I remember growing up and hearing about, your brother, I thought that he was only a few days old. I didn't know that he lived to be 3. So that's like stuff how I get lost in, conversation or the ways things are passed down. So I think it was very beautiful the way that you told that story. And also in that story, we talk about abuse because there was an incident that happened, when your mom was pregnant, so you as the author, when you're reading, you get this information that you are about to, you're getting it ready. How does one handle the trauma of others? Because I know I'm an empath. So like how did you handle that aspect of telling these truths?
Yeah. For one, I've had a lot of practice. Okay. So I've been a teacher and a principal in high need areas for several years.
Yes.
And so secondhand trauma is a world that I live in.
Okay.
With my students, with, just the areas that I have taught and been a principal in. When it came to my family story, I had to get outside of myself and act like I'm writing a story about characters.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is I wrote my story last because I kept, I was telling myself mine will be the easiest to write because I'm the author of the book.
Yeah.
But I think subconsciously I was putting it off. But there were times that I wrote my mom's story and my sister's story that I had to stop.
Yeah.
I was writing one day and I can't remember if it was my mom's story or my older sister's story. And I'm writing their story and I just had to turn off the computer. And I could feel the panic, the anxiety in my body. And I came out and I remember talking to my husband and I said, I just need to lay down for a second. And I said, I just need to cry. I need to get this out. I will be fine. And of course, he's looking at me like, you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But, he hugged me. He, encouraged me. And I said, okay. And then I had to go back in because there were times where it got personal for me.
Yeah.
But for the most of this book, I had to step outside of myself and tell a story.
Yeah.
Of characters.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And that makes sense too. Because when I read it, y'all are my first cousins. I read it in that aspect, but there were some things that stopped me in my tracks where I couldn't act like I didn't just read. Because when you talk about your older sister, there's a story that she tells about when, I think the baby's sister is born and it's on the bed and there's, something that happens. I froze. That was that was very difficult and hard to read.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's hard to read, and then I have to think about, yes, Ty, you're reading it, but someone actually lived this fucking experience.
Yeah, true story. To me, I wrote those parts really fast.
Yeah.
To a lot of other people, they're like, you wrote that very vivid. I felt like I was there in every single scene, and I'm like, I wrote it right super fast.
I kid you not, like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, I was, say fly on the wall. Like, I was right there, like, in the closet space, like, looking at this incident happen. And I'm like, wow. That's just, yeah. It's, yeah.
I was very plain. Like, I was very vivid in how I wrote the book because I wanted people to see trauma.
Yeah. And you talk about that when the book opens. And also in our conversation prior to the interview, you said that I didn't mince words. I called rape. I called abuse. Why was that important to you to do that? To not say molest, not say touch. Why was it important to you to go right there?
Because we had been silent for so long.
Yeah.
And it had been downplayed for so long. And it had been ignored for so long. Like, I know I had family that knew what happened. And it had been quiet for so long. And I said, this is my way of saying, no, let me put this in people's faces.
Yeah.
This is what happened. This is the truth. This is what we lived through. I don't care if you want to read it. You ain't even got to want to talk about it. But we were being truthful to ourselves and telling our story. And I wasn't going to patty cake it. And I wasn't, because I felt like if I did that, it was going to be for other people. I was patty caking and I would have been downplaying so that it doesn't seem as bad for people.
Right.
But it's a very ugly truth.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people need to sit in.
I commend you on that. I think that was very brave. I think it was courageous, and I think it was something that needed to be done. Because even in the climate that we live in now, I mean, this is 2025, and we're dealing with the Epstein files and people not wanting to release whatever because people, I think it's an unspoken rule to protect predators. I think we, it's, they didn't, there's once again, there's not that physical manifestation. Like, I can't see what happened to you unless you get pregnant. And if you don't get pregnant, what did it really happen? Yeah. And, we know that rape is one of the most unreported crime in America.
Yeah, people get punished, especially when you've been raped by the family favorite. So when I look at like my dad, my father, he was the family favorite. He was very loved by his grandmother, very loved by a lot of his family. And I think I tell this in Elaine's story where she said, in Port Arthur, we were Vern Lee's kids. Nobody messed with his kids.
Right.
He was the family favorite. So a lot of people are not going to believe or even hold him accountable for the stuff that he's doing, even if it's happening to them. So then when you get over here, it's like, even with telling this story, the abuser will still be invited to family reunions. They'll still be loved. But for some reason, when you speak up, people get mad at you for not taking secrets to the grave, but they have no idea that you've been living in a grave this whole time.
Wow.
And I just unapologetically needed to tell this story.
Right.
Because it wasn't about them anymore. Right. It was about us.
And let's talk about Vern Lee, because in the book, not the story, but in the book, you show him, in my opinion, as a father. Not so much, I didn't get the part about provided, but I don't know, but as a monster. And those were so contrast. Like I still see, I wasn't there, but I still see him braiding your sister's hair, and I still see going fishing, getting the shrimp and the stuff in Port Arthur. But then I see the fights. I see the fights when people are around.
Yeah.
Like, I posed the question to you, how did it feel, when you were writing, or how do you feel now about your father?
See, the thing is, he was all those things. He was a father. He was a child molester. He abused my mother. We lived in domestic violence. He was all of those things. And I think the battle with us sisters growing up has always been, which side of him are we going to choose? Do we choose the father? Do we choose the abuser? Do we choose this? And then based on whatever side we chose of him, it just became the elephant in the room. Yeah. And so we still begin to have our sister weekends and love on each other. But we knew it was the elephant in the room because some of my sisters seen him as father, and that's what they acknowledge him as, and that's it. And some people say, I acknowledge that he was an abuser, but he was a good father to me, and that's their story. We honor that. Yeah. And then some people say, I only saw him as abusive. And it's just been always this thing back and forth growing up as just the elephant in the room. Yeah. So what the book does, I try to tell everybody's story the way that they told it, to paint that picture. Like, to some of my sisters, he was a really great father. Yeah. And that is what makes people be quiet. Because you have molesters and you have rapists that's good to people in the family. Yeah. You got people that's been molested by their uncle, the same uncle that's putting them to college. Right. Do I hate them? Right. Do I not want? Well, I wouldn't be in college if it wasn't for him. And you end up with these so conflicting things. Like, the same uncle that molested me is the same one that played with me in the yard. The same one I would say is a father figure. So a lot of that is very common in families when you live next to your child molester, to your abuser. Because you can probably rape me at night, but then play with me in the yard during the day. And it's extremely confusing. And you know what? You don't want to get that person in trouble. Right. You don't want to tell. You don't want to hurt that person's feelings because they do a really good job of painting themselves not to be a monster. Right.
And wow. And I that makes perfect sense. Like, just going back to how, one person is not one thing. And so these predators, they know how to, maneuver, fashion themselves in such a way. So my next question to you is, growing up in the abuse or the domestic violence, like, when does one realize, hey, this isn't normal? Because if you grow up in it, like, how do you know that this is not normal? So when did you have that awakening when you was like, you know what, this not supposed to be?
Not at first, but I don't think we thought that deeply about it. I don't think we were thinking, is it normal? Is it not? It's all we knew.
Gotcha.
Growing up in domestic violence, like, I knew we just knew how it made us feel. Yeah. We were just afraid. And there was another hard, because I felt like when I wrote this book, I said, I gotta get out of Port Arthur because I stayed there like for so long, and everybody's
I still smell the salt. Yes. I smell the salt.
And I said, oh my God, I am still here. And so there was a time where I was writing about one of the fights, and I could feel like there was another anxiety attack I had, and I came out to my husband again, and I said, you know what? It's weird. I said, and all of my sisters, we felt fear, but none of us ever said, I'm afraid. We didn't say things like that. And I told him, I said, I was afraid. Yeah. I said, I grew up afraid. And when I said it, like, the water just broke and I cried. And I think that for the first time I cried for that scared little girl, not trying to be this strong woman, trying to, oh, I'm good. I'm writing a book. Look at me. I'm healed. No, it was for the first time that scared little girl. I could see her. I could feel her. I saw her pain. I could see the fear in her eyes, and I cried for her. And then I was able to go back and, finish writing. But I said, we got to get to a place where we can say, no, I was afraid. It doesn't make me weak.
No, it doesn't.
We were afraid.
Right. Because you talk about in the book about when those fights would happen where you guys were scattered. Y'all would just run, go hide when it happened. And I think one of your sisters said, like, at one moment, like, she wanted to do something, but then she was just too terrified. I think that was you in your book. Somebody said that they walked in on the room and something was happening with your father and your mom. I think he had her hands up.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things. I think one of the questions, the interview questions was, what's something that you never told anybody? Yeah. And I said, and I can remember one time, passing by, my mom and dad's room, and I can see that he, had her arms, pinned down. And it wasn't until much later that I can say, like, I can really speak on the fact that I seen him raping her.
Right.
But and at the same time, like, you got to think, I am probably no more than like 3.
Yeah.
So the fact that I can remember vividly anything that happened in Port Arthur, Texas, when I left there, I think I was 4.
Right.
And I remember so much at a very, very young age. Now, here's the thing. Here's a good side to that, because, I ended up skipping up a grade because I was so smart.
Well, see, there are some pluses in Trisha's Daughters, okay?
Because I think that
we'll take our wins when we can get them.
My brain can probably just hold a lot. But yeah. And so I don't think we ever thought, is it different? Maybe until we got much older and started really like hanging out with friends, and we're like, wait a minute, you sit in your dad's lap?
Yeah.
Because that even made me feel uneasy. And I started seeing, like, every time I seen a father with his daughter, I never thought that was healthy.
Wow.
Until it was much older. And then I see my husband with his girls, and I'm like, is that how that was supposed to go?
Right.
Like, that's something I continue, to kind of work on. But it wasn't until we were much older. And yeah.
And you guys also talked, there was this, how I want to phrase this underlining language that you sisters had, and it was laughter.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible says, medicine, happiness, or what's something that medicine to the soul.
Yeah.
Joy, laughter is
good for the soul.
Yeah. And you guys all say that, like, that was this peace amongst the chaos, that you guys could just laugh. And I think one of your sisters described someone's penis, and you're like, that shit should be funny. But here we are.
Yeah.
So, like, tell me about the laughter, like, and why do you think that was a saving grace for you guys?
I think it just was our out and our way of coping. Because we never really even talked about, hey, let's just laugh through it. I think we just really started to joke and laugh through things.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel as heavy. So it would be times where my grandmother would say something to me that was very damaging, and I would go outside, and Jackie would be like, who cares? Grandma's ugly anyway. And we would like have to get through it.
Right.
But it was just our way of lightening things, and we've always coped that way.
Yeah.
Like, even now, like on some of my hard days in my job, my supervisor is like, okay, I'm starting to realize now that you just laugh when you're having a very stressful day. And I'm like, if I'm not laughing, I think I know what my laughs mean. But I think it's just a way that we just cope. Like, last night, all of my sisters, we got on a Zoom and we had a 90s party, virtual 90s party. We just played all the 90s music. We put it in requests, and we're just kind of in that space with each other, because we talk every day.
Yeah.
And we're just in that space with each other and just laughing. And that's how it's always been. When we have a rough day, when we're having a rough moment, we just know we always have each other to check in with.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to crack a joke.
Yeah.
And we're going to be good again. And we be like, okay, let's do it. So,
and I'm glad you said that. Why because this bond that you ladies have, what's the word? How important that is to you, like, this bond, this sisterhood that you have with your sisters?
It means everything, because without them, I wouldn't have survived. Like, I wouldn't be where I am. I definitely wouldn't be in the mindset that I am. And so when I see people who have been through trauma the way we've been through trauma, and they're dealing with it much differently than we are, it makes me even feel more grateful, because I said I had a team of people with me.
Yeah.
And it's something about a support system when you're going through something that helps get you through things. The worst thing in the world, if you have the right support system around you to say you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And that's just how we've always checked in with each other. And even as we got older and started dealing with a lot of the effects of our trauma, somebody was on the phone checking in and saying, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. Nope, we're not doing that. You're going to make it. And we've always just we didn't leave nobody was left behind.
Right. And there's reading the book, I became angry reading the book, because I was like, and I think it's even said in the book, I was waiting for a hero. I was waiting for someone to swoop in and save, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when people got courage to speak up about, hey, XYZ happened, it's like it kind of went up and then it went down. So how was that living that experience, where were you looking for someone to come in and rescue you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There was a lot of deflating moments growing up. But I think those deflating moments is what gives us the grace to want to help other people. Every one of us went into a social career.
Yeah.
Every one of us went into some type of social work. So whether it is teaching, whether it's education, whether it's mental health, whether it's, something at law enforcement, every one of us went into a career where we want to be the one. We want to be that hero. We want to be the person that show up for somebody that never showed up for us. Right. We want to be the safe adult that we never had. And I think because those were so many deflating moments, it's what gives us the willpower every day to do what we do.
Right. Okay. That makes I get that. All right, let me go to my questions because we were just going off. We were just flowing. It was flowing the way it was supposed to flow. Let's see here. So there was a time, like in the book, where one of your sisters tell grandmother what happened about her being raped, and she says she's gonna handle it, and it happens again, and it wasn't handled, and so your sister tell your mom, and your mom goes the fuck off as she should have, and there was a slap. There was another moment in the book where I was like, what just happened? Now, do you recall that, or was that your first time hearing that story?
It wasn't. Okay. I remember that. I remember that with her, and I remember, even with my older sister. Because to me, at the time, I didn't realize it, but now as an adult, I realize a lot of those slaps meant I'm angry that you didn't stay quiet. And that's the same anger that I knew we were going to come up against when we wrote the book. And my mother, like a lot of things we kept from her because we know her.
Yeah.
And my mother is crazy.
Yeah. And Trisha was bad.
She didn't play. And one of my sisters had asked a question about my mom, about her story. And I said, the best way I can put my mom's story is she is you without a support system. And she didn't have that.
No.
And so I think she did the best she could. And what my mom knew and how to protect her girls was just to be laying hands on folks.
Right. Right. I mean, it was needed.
Yeah. So she did a whole lot of that. So a lot of times we didn't want to tell our mom anything because we know what she would do.
Right.
So.
And and going back to your mom, I really appreciated the honesty in the book because you guys talk about your own difficult times that y'all had when it was like you kind of washed your hands, but then there was this forgiveness moment, and I do appreciate that you telling the full story. There was times where she wasn't there, so let's walk me through that and then walk us through the forgiveness part.
I had a lot of anger toward my mom growing up because I blamed her for a lot of stuff. And so probably in my teenage years, we were just at odds with each other. Right. Like my older sisters were trying to, check me and Jackie for acting like this and for me and Elaine for acting like that. But I just was so angry because I just felt I was very judgmental and I didn't understand I didn't know her story.
Right.
And so as I got older, even in the beginning of my first marriage, I still was very judgmental toward her because look at me. I'm going to school, I'm working, I'm holding it down. There's no way you couldn't tell me that you're not able to do this. I was still very judgmental until the floor fell from under me.
Yeah.
And all I had was my mother. And once I had went through that divorce, my sisters, they was living their own life at this point, and I had moved back to Oklahoma close to my mom, and I'm back into a 2-bedroom apartment, and I didn't even take a fork with me, so I literally got to build everything from scratch.
Right.
And my mother went into her cabinet and got me the pots and the pans and everything. And, one time I didn't even have money for food. And she came to my job and, brought me money. And she was helping me with my oldest daughter, trying to get her through school. And she was dropping her off for me. And I said, all I had was my mom. And I think in that moment, I realized, damn, and she did this with 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And and at that moment, I never seen her no more as this person to be angry with. I had empathy for her because I realized the struggle, and I realized she did the best she could, and we just became really close. Since I've been in Oklahoma, that's just my little bestie, but we just become like really good friends. And I think it wasn't even like, I'm glad I moved back to Oklahoma. I'm glad I got to know her. But then when I got to know her story, I fell in love with her all over again, because I said, you were doing all of this by still trying to hold on to still dealing with your own childhood trauma. Right. But I think it was just a process. Because as a kid, I didn't know. I just knew, where's my mama at?
Right.
But as an adult, the woman in me understands the woman in her.
Right.
And I have empathy for her.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Let's see here. In telling your own story and typing it down, writing it down, what did you learn about yourself that you didn't already know? Like, did you learn damn, were you taken aback by yourself? Did you surprise yourself?
So what's crazy?
Life.
I wrote this whole book and forgot to tell my story. I said, wait a minute, I was leaving my story to the end, and I'm like, oh shoot, let me go back. And I wrote my story so vague.
Yeah.
That when I went back to read it, I said, there was a part in there where I said, I finally told I was telling my grandmother what happened in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But then I realized there was no part in the book where I had even said what happened. Because I didn't, subconsciously, I couldn't get out of myself and tell my own story like I had with my sisters and my mom. I had to be present in it. And so I'm sitting up there writing that part, and I am just bawling as I'm writing, but I knew I had to keep writing. So my story was by far probably one of the hardest things to relive because it was me.
Yeah.
And I had to have my husband proofread it for me, and I can see him at the kitchen table reading it, and then I can see him kind of get up and walk over to the office, close the door, kind of get through that. And I said, okay, what are your thoughts? I need you to give me feedback.
Right. Feedback, please.
Because I couldn't even proofread it.
Right.
I couldn't even live in it. It was hard. It was hard for me. But I just had to stay focused and say, this is to help other people.
Right.
And I think that's what got me through it.
And so did you learn anything from yourself, writing it, for you, oh, I didn't even know that, were there any new things, oh, I experienced that? Did you, were you wowed by something that you went through, when you was actually writing it?
I think I was definitely wowed. That was the first time that I realized I had lived a very fake life.
Wow.
That was the first time that I sat in it and said, none of that was success. I am just now feeling it.
Right.
That was probably the first time that I sat in that and said, oh my God.
Yeah.
I was still trying to get my grandmother's approval well into my 40s.
And has there been any, you and grandma, have there been any conversation, or, acknowledgement of what you experienced?
Okay. So okay, so several years ago, I was trying to go to therapy.
Yeah.
And they said, write a letter to your abusers.
Okay.
And I wrote a letter, and they said, okay, now get a chair and read it to them. And I did that. And then it said, now, how do you feel about calling those people and saying you forgive them? Okay, so I called my grandmother, and I said, I just want to let you know I forgive you. And she said, well, thank you for calling me, but for what? I didn't do anything. And I felt like I went back to my counselor. We back at 1. But then that was my last time talking to her. But it wasn't until long ago my grandmother came to my house.
Okay.
And sat on my couch. And I cooked, hey, I was very hospitable. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to stay. I said, I have plenty of room here. You're welcome to stay, because I knew she had to stay here in Oklahoma. She refused to stay. She wanted to go back, to my uncle's house. And I said, that's fine. But I said, God has allowed me to see the look on your face when you have to come into my house and sit on my couch. And you can barely even sit here comfortable because I was not supposed to be the grandchild who made it this far. And that was probably the last time she had came to my house.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's that. We ain't missing words, y'all. We are not missing words. And so going to that, because we're in a family, and there's some people who don't want to read this book because they know if they read it that they're going to learn things about people who they love and who they respect. And so what do you say to those people saying, well, why you have to tell this story? Like, this is our family, this, we could talk about this at, Thanksgiving or whatever. Like, what do you say to those people? Like, I'm not going to read the book. What are your response to those people?
The amount of people that we're going to help is going to far more. It's going to be way more people that we helped than what we lost.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it for them.
Yeah.
It's not about you. I had put on social media recently. I said, if my story makes you uncomfortable, good. Yeah. If it disturbs your peace, good. Now imagine living it.
I mean, that's, imagine living it. Exactly. Like I said, I commend you all are, getting together and deciding, now it's time, because now it's time, and there's no time like the present. And like I said, and like to quote Iyalo, we are as sick as our secrets, and we do have to call things out. We do have to make people look at things that they don't want to look at. We have to hold the mirror up to all of ourselves. I mean, there's parts of all of us that we like, we can do better or whatnot, but we just have to, you have to walk in it. And so I think that makes perfect sense to go ahead and, it is what it is at this point.
It's not about them.
It's not about them.
You can make it about you.
Yeah.
And making it about you is what's causing you not to read it. Right. And you don't want to sit in your truth. But I can promise them, if they read it, they going to have something to unpack in their story. So I don't think it has nothing to do with us.
It never does.
It has everything to do with they're not ready to acknowledge their truth. They're not ready to tell their story.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see here. Now, one of your sisters in her book, in her story, she talks about that, she was real quiet, and like she didn't really start talking to like the age of 12. Do you recall that? Do you recall her being so?
We used to always say, I don't even know where we got it from. But we used to always say, don't make her too mad because she got a heart murmur. She don't need to get upset. So we all just kind of like didn't like want to upset her, didn't want to make her mad. And so she was like, I was like so not a shy person, but y'all said I was shy, so I just played it shy.
And that goes into the next thing, because y'all talk about how like different people play roles. You were Mother Teresa, you were the one. Also, you needed the why.
Let's go save the world.
Where do you think that came from? Like, where did that came from? Like, what do you think that came from for you? Being the Mother Teresa, being the why child.
I'm an empath, and I was born that way. Yeah. Like, I can remember being probably 8 or 9 years old, sitting on my grandmother's porch and writing a letter to God and saying, wow. Lord, just get me out of this, and just, praying. I remember burying it on the side of the house.
Yeah.
Because I've always wanted to, like, I want to help others. I've always been the person that'd be like, oh, let's go get that homeless person some change. Yeah. Let's go do this. Like, I've always, even on the holidays, I go to like the homeless shelters and give things. And I never wanted anyone to struggle like me. And I think that just came from just being an empath. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's always good to, to know what is in you and give it a voice. And so let's go back to that house, that blue house,
Oh,
that
Lord.
small house. That was a story that y'all talk about in the book about having to get dead rats out the wall. That was traumatic.
Yeah.
That was, to me, that was fucking abuse.
I
wouldn't have done that. I would not. They would have. I don't know what they would have did. I would not have. No, hell no. But that was some wild stuff.
My husband, when he read my story, I said, "What was the hardest part?" He said, "Those rats in the closet."
Do you not? With those damn quilts and stuff in there? I'm like, no.
He said that was abuse. That's what he said.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, y'all talk about, like eating food, and there may be roaches on the food, and you have to help and tear it off, and
yeah,
that wasn't fair.
No, it was not.
That wasn't fair.
Yeah. Now my sister Ariel's story is she gets a lot of her trauma was roaches, and smack cereal.
Yes,
and
she ate those. To this day, she don't want to see no commercial. She don't want to walk down no aisle and see that red box.
No, she had about 3 pages. I had to condense it. Girl, this is like 3 pages of this story.
That is hilarious. Hilarious. But yeah. So that was. I agree. That was definitely. I'm not picking up no rats out no hole in closet. I'm not gonna do that.
That was hard.
Yeah,
that was very, very traumatic. If I don't remember anything else, because in my mama's story, I had to ask her, where did that closet come about?
Right,
because it wasn't there at the beginning. And
then they kind of built it, right? Like they kind of walked me to store stuff. And so also, we going back to the blue house. We see. I mean, because it was very, like I said, everything was very vivid the way you put it together in Trisha's Daughters. When some certain cousins would come down for the summer, and they would eat things different than you guys. And I'm thinking, and I'm putting on a child mind, so how does one not try to I may be envious of this cousin now because you've obviously shown me favoritism. So tell me about experiencing that, because that was heavy.
No, it was, and there were a lot of times we were envious, and there were a lot of times that we wanted to fight them.
Yeah.
But what was different is that they also thought it was wrong. And so they still wanted to be around us. And that was crazy because we still grew up very close, like siblings. But there were moments that we didn't like them because of that. And then I think it was them showing us that we also think this is wrong.
Right.
We don't want it, even if we're outside playing with them and they're being called inside because, my grandmother didn't want them playing with us.
Yeah.
Or was afraid that they would turn out like us somehow.
Yeah.
But no, they also thought it was wrong.
Yeah.
They didn't like that treatment either.
And even talking about that, you there's mentioned stories, I think a couple of your sisters' accounts, I think yours as well, of when your aunts would come down, and y'all would hear them talking about y'all. Has there been any conversations with those aunts? Has anyone acknowledged any type of hey, I was wrong?
Yeah.
How was that? One first question is hearing, these people who come down who you don't really see all the time, and when you get there, when they get there, they're talking negatively about you.
Yeah. Well, we always thought they were all that. Yeah. They would come down in nice cars, and their hair would be all put together, and they would be clean. Their kids would be all nice, and I'm like, I want that. Yeah. And then to kind of hear, you would always hear they didn't want. We just kind of got the message they didn't want their kids around us.
Right.
And it was always Trisha's daughters. Don't have your kids around Trisha's daughters. Somehow we just wasn't wanted. We were just, horrible.
Right.
And we could never figure out what makes us so bad.
Right.
We're not doing anything.
Right.
But later, I love my aunts.
Yeah.
And, some of my aunts are like second mothers to me. And I did get a phone call from some of my aunts down the years that said, "Hey, I just want to apologize. We should have protected y'all more growing up." And we did get phone calls like that. And I've always had a good relationship with my aunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know with me, because we didn't go down to Clinton often, y'all. I probably went there maybe 4 or 5 times. So not and never for an extended time. But to me, y'all, Trisha's daughters, y'all were the superstars. Like I wanted to know y'all. So like I always like try to find some way I'm gonna hang out with y'all. Because to me, I was like, I wanted to know y'all. And so I was, as we gotten older, we were able to experience each other in our older years. But like I've always thought that you guys were superstars. I kid you not. Like
really?
Yes. I always have. And it maybe the rebel in me because their word like, y'all watch out, like those were real things. Like so, and I've had those conversations even with my mom, like, there was an unspoken rule. Yeah. It was, and I cannot act like that wasn't the truth. But I'm a rule breaker.
Yeah.
And so if you tell me I've been sitting and hanging around somebody, I need to figure out for my own self.
Absolutely.
And that's the type of person I've always has been. So, but I'm glad that like I said, y'all were superstars to me.
Yeah.
So I was happy to be around y'all.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, well, that's definitely good to hear.
Yeah, that's the truth. And that's the crazy part. Because like you would never think that like I'm thinking that y'all are superstars.
We are like surviving.
Right. And that's the thing, like y'all are going through some traumatic ass shit.
Yeah.
And me in my brain, I'm thinking that y'all are superstars. Because I'm thinking y'all around grandma and them all the time, like we get to come way down here to see y'all. Yeah. So y'all were superstars to me.
No. No. But thank you though.
And so let's talk about peace. What is peace? What does peace means to Patrice? What does peace mean to you?
Well, first, knowing I deserve it.
Okay.
Is like a big deal. But I find peace and purpose. There was a time where I was really praying, like, I want to know my purpose in life. I don't just want a job. I want purpose. And I found that in education and in working with children who have similar backgrounds, that come from similar backgrounds that I've come from, and being able to be that safe adult for them, be able to listen to them, be able to be there for them. And as hard, as challenging as that work is sometimes, I find purpose knowing that I can be something for somebody that I never had.
Right.
And that brings me peace.
And my next question, do you have peace now?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Good. And so, to bring this all in, we've been discussing a memoir of survival, sisterhood and healing, Trisha's daughters. This book is written by Patrice and it you take us into some depths. You show us the monster. You unmask the monsters. You call them by their names. You are very intentional, in my opinion, of like laying everything out and showing a full range of everyone, showing a full range of your mother, a full range of your father, full range of your grandmothers and your uncles, and most importantly, showing a full range of your sisters. And I'm just gonna go back. I know I already asked a question, but if you just meet someone on the street and this person is going through, and they're having some similar experiences, why do this person need this book? Why do they need to walk away with Trisha's daughters?
Because it's a testimony. And it shows a very ugly picture, but then it also shows redemption. Not for one damn day have I regretted being Trisha's daughter.
Right.
And so, like, if anybody was to ask me, like, it is a testimony. It is not even about the story, but all of the blessings that came after. Like, all of us graduated high school, have college degrees, went on to have productive lives, successful lives, have families, have children, and we broke a cycle. Everything that statistics say should have happened with us, none of it happened.
Yeah.
and we became a blueprint
Yeah.
for how you can go through trauma and come out on the other side healed. And so a lot of times people are looking for answers and they're looking for solutions, and that's what Trisha's Daughters is. It's a solution. It's an answer. It's a blueprint.
I like that. A blueprint. I like that. I like that. Well, you guys, you know, we could actually talk for some more. But you know, we're gonna be conscious of your time. I'm just very grateful being here with my dear cousin. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a small part of this beautiful memoir. I've always actually considered myself a Trisha's daughter. I'm an honorary, so I really am. No, but in all seriousness, this story, it has to be told. Like this, it has to get out there. We have to continue to shed light in these dark ass places.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you have peace because you deserve it. You are worthy. I think you are a remarkable woman, and I love you with everything that's in me.
I love you too.
And you know what? We're gonna end this episode of Two Things Can Be True. You can get the link is gonna be in the bio. It's gonna be on all my socials, but y'all have to get a copy of this book because there is healing in it. There really is. It tells a true account of what these women went through and was able to overcome. And then sometimes when you know someone's story, because we all got stories, right? We all do. And it's beautiful to see, you know what, like she just said, they broke the cycle. They broke the fucking cycle. So if they can, we all can. So I would encourage everyone to get this book. We love you all. Thank you and good night.